And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek. I know a lot of us have fantasized about flying a spaceship in space, maybe being an astronaut, going up there, fighting people. Well, today we get a chance to check that out. Today we're going to look at Space Cadets, a cooperative game from Stronghold Games. It's from 3 to 6 people, takes about from 1 to 2 hours. This is a very unique game that has all sorts of little mini games in it. Have you played Yahtzee before? Have you played poker before? Have you flicked discs and dexterity before? Have you rolled dice? I mean, there's all sorts of different things to do here. Puts it all together into an interesting package. So let's get the box out, let's take all these pieces, and there's lots of them in here, and let's check it out. I have Space Cadets set up here for a training mission. This is one of the ones that you could download at the Board Game Geek page from Space Cadets. And this is good first missions to do. I'm not going to be able to show you everything that this game can do. In fact, I'm not going to be able to show you a whole lot of all the stations either. And there's no reason for me really to do that because Stronghold Games has done a great job and spent a lot of money, time, and energy into putting very detailed tutorials who are narrated by the designer on how each station is played. So I will not be showing you that in this video. Now, if you want to see those tutorials, as I mentioned, you can look at the iPad or smartphone app, which also has the tutorials in there. Also, you could go to strongholdgames.com/spacecadets and you can see the tutorials there. So here comes a very brief tour of each of the different stations in Space Cadets, just to give you a feel for the different types of mini games and how they relate to games that you probably have already played in your life. The captain uses his station to navigate all the other Space Cadets around and through each round, all the way till it gets through all the steps. The captain's job is made a lot easier with the iPad or smartphone app, where they can go through all the different sections of the normal turn, and they can go through all the different stations, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for the timed ones, it actually times it, and it will actually start beeping when it gets close to the end. So this is a nice, easier way for them to keep time and keep the action involved with the captain taking care of everything. The engineers try to rearrange a puzzle to try to get the station's energy that match. The shields are trying to beef up their shields by placing numbers and putting them in such so that they will match up to some sort of like poker-like combinations. The sensors are trying to blindly pull out the shapes needed from the bag of many shapes. The helmsman is steering the ship, and their job is to simply try to figure out which way and which direction and how fast the ship moves to try to get to your next objective. The weapons person is trying to put together pieces just like Tetris in order to get some shots on the enemy and then to finally shoot them. For the tractor beam, you're lifting up tiles just like a memory game, trying to figure out where a match is. The damage and repair officers either handing out damage to people, different sides from the ship, maybe no damage, maybe damage, or maybe it's trying also during the repair section to, yes, repair stuff, no, damage stuff, and maybe even they gamble to roll dice to see if there's damage. The jump drive is trying to roll 5 of a kind, just like Yahtzee. Of course, he can get some help from some of the cards to the left. When setting up for Space Cadets between 3 and 6 players, you can see with a 3-player game it has each person using 3 stations. With 4 players, most of them are at 2 stations and one of them's at 3. 5 players, everyone's at 2 stations except one person has 1. And at 6 players, most people have 1 and a couple of them have 2. So you can see these suggested setups depending on how many players there are. And there's also different ways to set difficulty levels by starting the game, whether you're doing easy, normal, or hard. Now there's 6 different missions in the book that you can choose. They recommend you starting with the first one. And as you can see, when you're setting the missions up, it actually tells you how to set the board up and your objectives. So in this case, mission 1 is called crystal mining, and the objective is to capture all crystals via the tractor beam and jump out of the sector. Of course, there's detailed instructions what this setup really means, but you're pretty much following a mission. And when you complete the mission, you win, and if you die, you lose. There's also official training missions that you can print off the Board Game Geek page for Space Cadets. And these are good training materials to start and do one of your first ones before you're ready for a real mission. There's a couple of them. It tells you how to set it up just like the normal instructions would, and it actually gives you some strategy tips. So as we go through the steps, obviously as we see here, the captain pushes them through the steps. In step 1, you're discussing for 3 minutes the strategies. And step 2, you're preparing all the stations. Step 3 is the action phase where everybody's doing their thing for 30 seconds. Step 4 is the resolution phase where they're resolving everything that happened. Step 5, you're going through the tractor beam. Step 6, you're firing weapons. Step 7, the enemy tries to hit you. And then step 8, you can try to jump, and step 9, you can repair. So that's essentially how the game goes, and that would be 1 round. Now, here we have the game set up as the training mission. And it might be hard to see, but we got an enemy here, an enemy here, an enemy here. This was set up from the training mission. Always tells you how to set things up. Now, normally, in a normal game, you'll just have one sector here that's open, and then you either have to shoot a tractor beam or move into the next sector before it's revealed as to what's there. But in the training manual, there's 3 of them there already with the enemies already there. Now, here is our ship. This is actually part of the promo pack. The normal ship that comes with the game is this little chit here, and the special little cool looking ship is here. The promo pack comes with this and a few extra cool little cards, and that's actually available on Stronghold Games website for I think about $8. Anyway, so when we get to the part where we fire weapons and repair. So in this case, we're trying to kill all 3 enemies. That's this mission's goal. So as we go through and we resolve things, for instance, when we resolve the helm, the ship may move during its turn. Now, of course, if you move through nebulas or asteroids, you may lose locks, you may get damaged depending on rolling dice. Those are just things on the board that you're typically going to want to go around. The different arrows here changes your speed up or down depending on if you go over those. But let's just say we ended up here during the resolution phase, and then we're getting ready to try to fire a weapon at this enemy. Now, when you're firing weapons at the enemy, obviously during the weapons, I showed you how you flick the disc at somebody. And here we see the things about them. So the blue shield for this leech is 1 and his health is 6. So when we hit the weapons, if we hit the weapons with a 7, one of them would get hit into the shield, and then the other 6 would get hit there. So we would need to have hit a 7 on this, a total of 7 from our weapon fires to kill this guy. If we shot and we only got, say, a 3, for instance, 1 would go to his shields and the other 2 would go down to him, and then he would be left with just 4. And so he's not dead yet. So that's when we fire weapons. Now in the enemy action phase, if he was fired at, he actually flips over, and that red means that he is now locked onto us. And when he locks onto us, he can actually now move. And the green here shows us that he can move 2. So he'll move 2. He'll always move the shortest distance to us with the least passive resistance, meaning he won't go through asteroids, won't go through nebulas, because those can hurt him as well. So now he's 1 space away. Well, he can actually hit us from up to 4 spaces away. So sure, he can hit us. And this tells us how bad he hits us. The 1 white die there shows that he rolls 1 die on us. So he'll roll a die. Oh, it's just a 1. Now in this case, he's facing our front, so our front shield would get hit by 1. If we had enough shields to withstand it, good, nothing happens, just our shields go down for that turn. If we had no shields there, we would have to take a damage from our damage and repair section to see if we rolled damage. So essentially as that's played, you go through all 9 steps over and over until you either complete the mission, in this case it's just kill 3 guys, or you lose and you explode. Alright, well there's Space Cadets. Now again, that was a very abbreviated version of what you do in this game. The tutorials themselves would take 20 minutes to go through. So there's a lot here. I kind of glossed over a lot of the minute details, a lot of the details themselves, to try to give you an idea of what the different stations do, just in general, how they work. Now, I gotta say, this is probably one of the most unique games I've ever played, where you can play it 3 to 6, and depending as how many stations you're manning, and then each of those stations are so different from each other that you might find that like you're good at puzzles, but not Tetris. You're good at, flicking discs, but you're not good at rolling for Yahtzee, or you don't like it. And it's interesting that you can match up the stations most of the time with somebody who is good or likes that thing. So if you get a good team and you've played this enough times, you can pretty much get like a solid team together and you could pretty much conquer things. Now don't get me wrong, this is a hard game. Even the training missions the first couple of times we got our butts whooped. What does that tell you? It's hard, which is always good for a co-op game if it's hard. So it is very unique. There's nothing I've ever played like it. It is hard, but you gotta have the right group for this that really want to sink their teeth into something new and something big. And there's just, there's a lot of replay value here because, as I said, you're playing different positions. And if you've been playing, the helm for a while, and then you go on to something like, the weapons, it's a completely different experience for you. So if you have a group that likes this game, you can spin around and replay it a lot. Now, I will say it does take a decent amount of 2 or 3 times through it to really understand what's going on. It's not something that you're probably going to break out to people that have never played games before and think they're just going to figure it out. They're going to be totally confused. So this is mostly played with my gaming group and even then, some of them, it was a little hard for them to figure out what was going on. Now, granted, if I already had someone that had known the game and they were teaching it to all of us, it would have been easier than me teaching it to them and learning it at the same time. So if you do, it's a great experience. Don't let the hardness totally shy you away, because I think the reward at the end of the pot is far worth it. That once you struggle through the rules and once you struggle through all the different details that make this game so good, that you'll really have a lot of long-term enjoyment with this game. So if you want a unique experience, you're looking for a good co-op game, you're not afraid to spend 2 hours, and you've got people that are really ready to sink their teeth into a deeper co-op game, you gotta check out Space Cadets.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.